Everyone, thank you so much for joining us today for the Thrive Thursday Everyone Has a Story Author Spotlight Series. Today, I am joined by the lovely Ananya Datta. Ananya, I'm so excited to spend some time with you to discuss your chapter and your journey of becoming a published author. First off, thank you for saying yes. When I first reached out to you guys, a whole bunch of different people, I sent an email and kind of gave an idea of what my concept was for this project. Now, I had mentioned to you right before we started recording that I think I emailed that to like 50 or 60 individuals, but yet I only received responses back from about 13 or 14 of them. So take me back. I want to understand what was your initial thought and what was it that made you say yes?
Absolutely. Well, first, thank you so much, Laura, for having me, and hello, everyone. I think in terms of what was going through my mind when you first asked, I think the first thought is fear. I think we all can relate to that on some level, that even though we all have stories that need to be told, we're afraid of being judged. We're afraid of putting it out there. We're afraid of what people will think. And if we're really truly ready for people to hear our story. And the other part is, of course, the technical aspect of I'm not a writer. I'm not a writer, but I, can definitely articulate my story. How do I close that gap and bridge that gap? Will there be support? And of course, you provided us with all the support we need. So I think initially those were kind of my hesitations and obstacles in my mind and the story I was telling myself. But I knew that this is an amazing opportunity, a once in a lifetime opportunity, and that this is the time to step up and take it. So that's what made me say yes.
I love that. And I'm hoping that it was a enjoyable journey. And here's the exciting part, that we are launching the book and we are going to share your story with the world. So let's dive into a couple of little points that you mentioned in your chapter. The first one I want to ask you about is, you said your word is more. And I love that, right? You wanted more for yourself. You wanted more for your clients. You wanted more for the world of yourself. So can you expand? Where did that come from? Was it a moment in time? Was it something that triggered you wanting more? Or tell us about that.
That's a great question. I think at the height of the pandemic last year, in the last 18 months or so, out of necessity and also circumstances, I was made to pause and take stock of my value system and what I find to be valuable, and also how I want to show up in the world. And I realized that where I am in life, I just wanted more. I wanted more to be fully authentically myself. I wanted more opportunities to help other people and serve other people. And I wanted more of my voice at the table that I wasn't getting in my previous employer. And so I know that if I felt like that, that many other nurse practitioners were also going to be feeling like that. And I wanted to be that conduit to help bridge that gap, to be the voice. And I knew that the only way to do this is starting a business and being able to create the vision that I really see for our industry, and begin that. I think that taking it from a seed to really fruition, I wanted the motivating thing there was wanting more for myself first, and then wanting more for my industry and nurse practitioners second.
Wow, that is phenomenal, and congratulations in all of that.
Thank
So let's go back to that fear question again. Okay,
you.
so here you are, you took that pause like all of us, right? And so many people did realize a lot of things in their life had to change when they took that pause. Now, just because you were aware of it doesn't necessarily mean that you took action, but you did. And you mention in one part of your chapter about imposter syndrome. And we know this is something that most people in the world experience at one time or another. So please share, I'm sure during all of this journey of taking this leap of faith and taking action, how did imposter syndrome affect you?
Oh man, I love this question. So I think that it's almost a duality that we live with this, especially as women. This comes knocking on our door anytime we make leaps and bounds and make decisions that feel scary and big, where we're expanding. So this happened for me where I was taking a transition from being an employee to an entrepreneur. And I felt that, I'm being called to serve. However, am I ready for this? Do I have the capability and the capacity to really create this vision and be a leader? So I think that not having evidence, we're such a society where we're always looking for evidence rather than potential and what we can do with that potential. So I was always looking for that evidence. And instead of looking for evidence, I switched my mindset to look for the potential that I have and invest in that. And really just, catapult that feeling rather than leading with the imposter syndrome. And I think we all as women face that no matter what stages of life we're in. And it's just a reality of anytime you're going to make big decisions that feel like a quantum leap or anything like that, it's going to come up, and it's really your next level self inviting you to step into her. And so that's what I did, is although I have the fear, not allowing that to lead, but rather leading from a place of my potential and how I want to serve. So it's still there, but I think that I don't allow it to steer the car, right? I'm in the steering wheel, and that's the difference that I've been able to navigate.
Wow, that is powerful. And you are right. How many times have we said, well, I'll just wait for that sign, or I'll just wait for that perfect moment where everything like kind of lines up, and that would be the time when I need to make this leap. We all know that never appears. That will
Exactly.
never be there. And those opportunities or those situations or those leap of faith that you're supposed to make those change, you can miss them. You can look behind and say, if only I had acted or executed or really acted upon that at that moment, maybe things would be different. And I think, and let me ask you, I'm curious of your opinion on this, because I've experienced this in my life. It's almost like you have to pay attention to the signs, because in a way, sometimes there are signs, but not signs of, hey, this is the perfect time, more of maybe this is the opportunity. Like the signs of, someone in my industry just said this, or I was listening to a podcast and I heard this, and you all of a sudden are saying, hey, there's other people in my industry that want this more, and I'm hearing it. But if you weren't listening or paying attention to that, maybe that would have passed. So did that happen to you? Did you start to recognize that other people within your industry were looking for the same thing?
Absolutely, especially with COVID and how that has changed really the landscape of our job security as nurses and nurse practitioners. I think we're all looking for who's going to lead this next wave of nurse entrepreneurs and what nursing looks like beyond the bedside. Who's going to take the lead on this and create this movement? And so we're all looking to each other to redefine this. And I think that that desire is so great, of wanting something different for ourselves and redefining what it means to be a nurse and how we can still conduct business outside of the bedside. And absolutely. And I think that there's an innate desire for me to take action. I've always been an action taker. I've always, been very goal oriented and a high performer. So I think it was naturally for me to feel that pull and that calling to do that next step. However, of course, fear is involved with that, but I think that what's really helped me is having a vision that's beyond me, that's greater than me, and always feeling called to serve. And I'm excited to see where that's going to lead me. And I think that we all in this industry are feeling it to some level. And I'm excited to see the next steps here.
What do you think it looks like? What do you think that landscape looks like in the future?
That's a great question. I think that honestly, we're going to be seeing so much innovation from nurse entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
We have been waiting on the cusp of something like this. And now the opportunity is there to be innovators, to start companies, to be consultants, to redefine that you don't necessarily have to. If you love nursing at the bedside, that's great. However, a lot of us may be burned out right now, or may feel like we want to take a pause and do something creative. And so that may look like, starting a consulting company and consulting in a different capacity to impact systems. It varies, but I think having the freedom and opening up that opportunity and redefining what it means to be a healthcare provider and what we're capable of. Now it's almost like the permission has been granted, and I think we're going to see a lot of innovation here in the space, and I'm excited to see where that takes us.
Wow, that is very exciting. And as you're speaking, the word that came into my mind was disruption. There was a disruption within the healthcare industry, of course, with everything that has gone on in the last 18 months or so. And anytime there is a disruption, there is innovation. That's where innovation comes. So yes, right? Out of any negative becomes a positive, because it can't remain the same. You have to change. There has to be innovation based on the disruption that we saw. So that is exactly where opportunity ties in. So wow. So congratulations on, taking that leap of faith and taking action and putting yourself in this leadership role, because we all know that's not easy. It is certainly not easy, but it's necessary, and it will forever change the industry. So thank you. Okay, so you've certainly learned a lot of lessons over this last 18 months, over your lifetime of your career. So if you were going to pick one thing that you learned a lesson, and what advice would you give others based on that lesson that you learned?
So the biggest lesson that I've learned here is taking stock of my own belief and value system, because there is a time now that I've come to in a chapter of my life where feeling like a cog in the wheel is no longer acceptable. I want that more. I want to feel like I am impactful, and I want to feel like my values are aligned with whatever I'm doing. Otherwise, it's extremely difficult for me to be invested. And so the biggest lesson here is making sure that you're aligned, because otherwise anything that you do just will feel out of shift. You won't be invested, and you'll look back and not be sure as to why you took the time to do something that didn't light you up and bring you joy. So I think we're at a time where these things are now being redefined, and how we feel about our values. And if that's not showing up for us, then it's going to be a no. So my biggest advice would be, allow this opportunity and time to take stock of your own value system, and one small step of whatever it is that your dream that you're wanting to do, that's been on the bookshelf for a long time. Pull that down and let's blow off the cobwebs. Let's take a look at those things that if you weren't inhibited by fear or anything else, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? And then let's take one step towards that today or this year before the year's over, and see how you feel then, and how you can get more aligned to that person.
I love that. And as you're speaking, I'm just sitting here kind of lighting up inside, because that is how I live my life. Because and the whole time I'm thinking, no wonder why the two of us align to each other, because we think similar. And how beautiful is that, right? That, guys, for anyone out there listening, Ananya was on my Thrive 30 podcast that we did during the height of COVID in 2020 and early 21. And I would meet 3 strangers every Thursday, people that I had no personal connection to before that moment. And they would share how they transitioned and were thriving through the pandemic. And to think that it's such a magical, magical world that we can take strangers from different backgrounds and different everything and put them together when people are aligned, we can make monumental changes in the world together.
Absolutely.
So on the immortal words that you just said, do things that light you up. Surround yourself with people that also light you up and are aligned to believe the way you are. Because if you surround yourself with people that constantly tell you, that's too scary, no, you shouldn't do it, no, you're not smart enough, you're not enough, whatever the enough is, you are. And if you do something that starts with your why and your beliefs and your passion, share it with the world, because that's what the world needs more of. So thank you so much for sharing this. We cannot wait to read your chapter. She is chapter number 5. And thank you so much for continuing to bring your light to the world. Take care.
Thank you so much, Laura. I appreciate you.